Somewhere in the middle of the two extremes lies a world of open discourse. Probing the depths of the in-between. Welcome to Gray Matters Radio with your host, Michael Devine.
Welcome to Gray Matters Radio, the show that operates somewhere in the world of the in-between. What is the in-between that you ask? Well, unless you've been sleeping under a rock for your whole life and you know that these two things are called political parties, and this show lives in the gray area between both of those. Crazy idea, I know, but for me, I'm actually kind of colorblind, so I really couldn't identify a political party even if I really wanted to, so I figured, why not drag more people into the gray with me so I'm not really alone? I am your host, Michael Devine, your tour guide of the gray. And what qualifies me to guide you on this journey, you ask? Well, I'm a counselor. I'm a counselor with a conscience. A man who has been tasked with saving the world one person, one family at a time. A man who saw the world going down the drain from his therapist chair and decided to take his brand of therapy and apply it to the world. But joining me on this nebulous, treacherous journey is the everyman, Dominic Busia. Man who's so preoccupied with the world of the in-between that he literally almost blew himself up trying to get there. So pack your bags, grab a drink, and join us in the gray. Good evening, Dom. How you doing tonight, man?
Mike, how's it going, buddy? Great new intro, man. I love it.
You know what? You always have to be working on this thing. I mean, I'm not pretending to be an expert, and I figure you got to hone this thing, get it kind of nice, good, and kind of tight, and so... Yeah, that's what I came up with.
And I guess I know you're colorblind now, so that explains some of your crazy outfits.
Yeah, apparently no one told me. Must have been a joke for a while. But I appreciate it. I appreciate it, but right, I appreciate you trying to get to the gray.
There we go.
You almost blew yourself up. But I appreciate you joining with me on this journey.
Right on. So what are we talking about tonight?
What are we talking about? So, I don't know if you realize, do you know what the fastest growing job is right now? Literally in the last 2 weeks, there's been a big shift in profession, what people are reporting. If you had a guess, what do you think it is?
Oh, geez. I'm going to say healthcare.
That is an excellent guess. No, in the last 2 weeks, apparently, firefighter. And city urban planner is the number one job. And what's amazing, I didn't realize, but apparently there's like a 1 week certification program to be a forest fire and a city planner. I mean, I was actually hoping that someone could tell me where it was. I know, isn't that amazing?
Maybe it's time for a career change for me.
I don't know, but apparently everyone is chiming in. I look at a lot of what's wrong in the world is social media, and so I think there's so much. There's a plethora of material for us to use that kind of demonstrates everything that is wrong in the world. So, of course, we use the Gray Matters page to help us find these things. And so this week I posted an article. It was interesting because Piers Morgan has actually been a really strong supporter of President Trump. And he actually posted an article. It was entitled, "If You Can't Feel True Empathy, Trump, Then At Least Try to Fake It." And what he was referring to was Trump's tweet during the forest fires that are still going on in California. Basically, he was blaming CAL FIRE for basically not doing enough and making insinuations about it basically being a very partisan Democratic issue because California is a liberal state. I don't know if you knew that, Don, but California is very Democratic.
Wow, that's shocking.
I know. I know.
Just kidding. I guess I've been living under a rock then apparently my whole life.
I know. And so, and the
it's a beautiful state, but the people there sometimes, I don't even know if they're red, blue, or gray sometimes. They're in a whole different area.
Well, it's weird because California is like a country, basically. I mean, it has a giant budget. It has a giant budget, this big bureaucracy, and I'm not going to pretend that everything they do is great. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever tried throwing trash away in California. There's like 17 recycling bins. I mean, literally, like there's like 17 of them. Look, I mean,
Oh.
and the thing is, I always felt guilty. I never realized I was throwing them in the right one or not. So I just usually ended up throwing them all into one and just running away. Now, mind you, by running away, that usually meant I was in ski boots trying to, like, kind of skedaddle out of there. 'Cause and everyone there is apparently a snowboarder, so it looks like an idiot, and everyone else is walking normal. But that's a different show, different day. But yeah, California does things a lot kind of differently, and a lot of times it's a butt of the jokes. But so basically, where I think everything started, it's not news to everybody that President Trump gets a lot of his, well, to say, I don't know if you want to call it news or information, but usually it's from conservative websites. You want to call them conspiracy, you want to call them hypotheses, whatever you want to call them. Usually gets them kind of there, and then usually he'll make a tweet about it. Now, what he was usually referring to, so basically this started, actually it was in August before a lot of these fires broke out. So there is a website, it's called the Flash Report. It's a California-based conservative online news thing, kind of like Drudge Report or what have you. And what they started attacking was Governor Jerry Brown in 2016 signed now mind you, he's a Democrat, so surprise, you're knocking on him. He basically signed a law in 2016 about how to manage fires, since California's been being ravaged with forest fires. And so he voted down one particular area of this law. And basically it just took off from there, and everyone basically now is blaming Governor Brown and pretty much anybody that has to do anything with California in these fires. And so that's where it kind of started. And now, Dom, I don't know have you been reading at all or watching some of the debates going on Facebook?
Oh, about the whole fire issue here?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
have you kind of paid attention to the interplay and the interchanges between people?
Oh, it's everywhere, man. People posting any article they can find and then having to back up why they posted it. They can't do it. It's crazy.
And that's why we exist, right?
Yeah.
So this is like a little thing that we're introducing. We've been talking about it a little bit of, hey, what is the show? What do we want to be? How we want to use it? And so this is what we're calling taking it into the gray. This is that area where basically we go online, we see some stupid argument people are having about a very complicated issue, and let's just kind of break it down, analyze it, really to show it almost like a mirror. We're not going to make fun of it. We're not going to, try to do these little gotcha moments. Just really looking at it for what it is, and kind of really looking at how right or wrong it is. And then we're going to bring in real evidence. I know that's mind blowing. Real evidence from real sources.
You mean everything on Facebook isn't true, Mike?
I know, like,
man.
I know you being the everyman, Dom. I know that might be kind of tough. I know it's Facebook. Not everything is real on it. It's amazing. So that's what we're gonna do, because I figure if we're gonna save America, I mean, really, this is how we do it. If we're looking at social media as a reason why I got so screwed up to begin with, isn't this basically the best way of just kind of reversing it? I don't know. It's worth a shot, isn't it?
I say let's go for it. Let's see what happens.
Let's dive in here. Now, we're not going to say anybody's names, although I imagine if the people are following our page are going to listen to the show, they're going to know we're talking about them.
Yeah,
but we're not doing it in mean. We're not doing it mean. So what I'm going to do, all right, so the article, if you can't feel true empathy, Trump, then at least try to fake it. And it was going into the timing of when he said it. It wasn't getting into whether or not what he's saying was true. It was purely about the timing, basically, of it. Now, one particular person right off the bat literally says, there have been thousands of fires in this state. Now, they said exclamation points. I'm trying to exclamate them. I'm not trying to put my bent, on it.
There we go.
All right. Just trying to be real here. Now, call me on this, Dom, if I'm doing it. At some point, someone has to take accountability. Failure on the part of the government causes these things to happen. Exclamation point. Maybe you guys are looking at the wrong person. Exclamation point. For some reason, accountability is out the window. Exclamation point.
Wow. Lots of exclamation points, huh?
But what was interesting, the whole article was about the timing, the empathy. And what do you notice right from the get-go? This is the very first response, by the way, on this article. What do you notice?
Well, I would probably venture to guess that person may or may not have even read the article. Let's just start there.
Why do you say that? I mean, it's not rocket science here, but why do you say that? I'm not going to assume anything here.
I would like to think if somebody read the article and understood what his point was, talking about, well, there's people on the front lines risking their lives, and people are losing their homes, and people are losing their lives. It's not necessarily about the accountability at this point. Let's just start there.
And that's what's interesting. I look at, that's what we call priming. Not to get all psychologically or anything, but basically when you're going there already primed for what you want to argue, you're basically just saying what it is that you want to say. You're not even paying attention to the argument. You're not paying attention to what they're saying, not even the context of it, right? So here's what's interesting. So that was the first kind of response.
So was
next one underneath it. Person
wrote a soapbox to go against Trump. If I'm going to interject a second point of what my first thought is, it's this person may not be a Trump supporter.
May not. Who knows?
May not.
Very well. Who knows? It's interesting. Well, I mean, I guess we're not. We don't know. That's why it's gray.
That is great. I know we don't know. It would seem like
no. We're not going to. We're not even going to make any assumptions about that because as that negative, all we're looking at is what they responded to and what can we glean from this.
All right.
Next person, new person writes.
Yeah.
This state has been in drought for a long time, with climate change mixed into the factor. These forests are tinder boxes. I think they meant tinder boxes, but we're not going to knock them on it.
Well,
all the gases build it up to take an ember to cause a massive fire. 40-plus people have already lost their lives, and they are searching through burnt cars and houses now looking for remains. Some of these that have died are first responders attempting to control these fires. The president needs to shut his mouth and stop being so damn disrespectful. Double exclamation point. Actually, no, there's a triple in there. I'm just getting old.
Oh, wow.
So, all right. So what do we pick up there? I know I'm picking up. Now, they're actually, I think, tapping into what the article is about the empathy. That there's people fighting the fires right now, and people are dying, and that there needs to be some respect. Now, given how it ends, it definitely is a little triggering. We'll say there's a little stick there,
Sure.
at the first one. I mean, that's how I'm picking it up. I mean, do you see that one any different?
Actually, you do. I mean, it's actually addressing more of what the article itself is actually about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about the people. We're talking about the first responders. We're talking about burnt cars and houses. I mean, she mentions looking for remains. I mean, that's a sobering point. But going back to what Piers is saying about have some empathy, I mean, right there it is.
Well, and that's what's interesting. And then here's the next response. This is the original poster. There is so much more involved than what you guys are seeing! Exclamation point. Now, I'm kind of interested now. It's like a conspiracy theory or something. There are things that can be done to mitigate the damage! Exclamation point. It's not being done. Where's the funding going? It's an exclamation point. I think it should be a question mark, don't you? Where's the funding going? Versus where's the funding going?
It should be a question mark.
I made it to editing. I think that would have been a more effective way of saying it. But hey, once again, neither here nor there. But once again, it to me it's exposing a fundamental problem we have in this country. We have very complicated topics, very difficult things very difficult things that are out there, and it almost seems like one person's trying to talk about what something is about, and one person is only covering the one angle that they want to direct it into and has nothing to do with what this particular post and article is even about. And that's troubling to me, that how can you have any discussion in this country where you have one person is literally just kind of going at it from whatever way that they want to argue it. I mean, that's a little difficult to have a conversation in this country. Don't you agree?
Well, it ceases to be any, discussion at that point, let alone communication. It becomes really just expressing your opinion, no matter what it's related to, just to get it out there.
Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? Now, the person who responded back to this person, now I think they're interested. I think they're almost kind of intrigued. Like, do tell. But they kind of mimic the exclamation points. I don't know if they were making fun of them.
Lots of exclamation points in this.
I know. There seems to be a rash of that. It almost seems like this is like a Seinfeld episode. The placement of an exclamation point. These pretzels are making me thirsty. But anywho, once again, we digress. It happens sometimes in the gray.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of boundaries. So now this person responds back. I will put this out there! Exclamation point. when you are a bankrupt state and you get federal funding cut because you became a sanctuary city, how do you get the funds you need? Exclamation point, question mark. I don't even know.
Wow. Now we're getting somewhere new. Now we're using
getting somewhere new. But what's interesting is, does this have anything to do with the original post?
Oh, not even close.
Yeah, nothing at all, right? Now, the person responds back, I will be honest with you. I do not know anything about the economic state of California, but I do know with all the wealth that's there, it's hard to believe that they would have any reason to be bankrupt and not saying that they're not. So now it's like, see how easy it is to get off track? It's like now they're talking about, they're not even talking about empathy, firefighters dying. Now they're talking about bankruptcy of California, their politics, how they're managing stuff. And because it's Democrat, I think we can safely assume that this is a dig on Democrats, how they're doing their funding, and that basically because they're steering money into some secret, God knows whatever else, that's the reason why that the fires are bad. I mean, is there any other way you can read it up to this point?
Quite honestly, I'm confused at how it even gets to this point.
That's what happens. I mean, it's like the telephone game. It starts with one thing, but it's nuts, though, right? But I mean, but this is Facebook. This is what's happening. It's so easy to get distracted, right?
And I've been there too, where you'll post. I will personally post about something, and then a random person will come in totally off topic or asking something that's not even related. And I usually just either politely say, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's table that somewhere else. PM me, do something, or just quite honestly, not even respond. Like, okay, not going there.
And then think about the conversation shuts down at that point, right?
Yep.
So then now finally I stepped in. I let it go for a little bit because, hey, it's kind of like an experiment. I feel like a dick kind of doing it, but hey, man, it's our page and our show. We can do whatever the hell we want, right? So finally I stepped in. I'm like, all right, now I'm going to steer this thing back into what I thought was really kind of important. Now, I'm going to give a little backstory to my comment that I back. So here's the irony. So I was flying back from Austin the other morning, and I heard the gentleman talking about the fires. He was sitting kind of to the aisle over me, and I kind of like, hey, I kind of noticed you kind of talking about this because, I'm an inquisitive guy. This gentleman actually was a wildfire forest fighter actually in Colorado. And I was like, what is the irony? What are the chances I actually have a wildfire forest fighter here sitting next to me that I can actually ask them their honest opinion? So what I wanted to do was, okay, I want to bring it back to what the original point was. But then I kind of saw where, okay, this is getting so off of fact. Let's bring it back to the facts of what somebody who is an actual forest fighter. Is it a forest firefighter? It's kind of a weird
forest fire
wildfire forest firefighter.
That fire fast.
I don't even know. Gosh, I wish I could have gotten his name so I could actually figure that out. But once again, all right, let's bring it back.
Forest firefighter. Yeah.
Wildfire? I don't know. The dude fights forest fires. All right, that's what we're gonna say, right? So what I said was, I think the point that many people, myself, are making is that it wasn't about the veracity of the statement. It is more about the timing of it. Could they have been putting more money into fire prevention? Yes. But when your state hasn't been getting rain, and there is not much you can do about that, in Texas, where I lived for 15 years, you could see random fires from heat lighting, cigarettes, sparks from cars that would start a fire. It is just that dry out there. My wife and I, ironically, were just out in California in those areas over a month ago, and it is so dry and windy. You can smell the pine tree smell in the air. Like, literally, there's like this have you smelled that before, Dom, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, it's so dry, you can smell almost like the pine needles, right? And maybe my wife and I were saying, it's like, wow, like you, because there was a ton of forest fires, the Napa ones were going on at the time. Like, literally, you could see the haze from it, and all of a sudden you start getting an idea of, what can you do about it? I mean, literally, it is that dry out there. It's all it would really basically kind of take. And so I was kind of trying to go, listen, one person's opinion, tried steering it back and saying, literally, I was actually out there, basically. So then I went into, so I sat down next to, this firefighter and everything. And literally, what I said to what he basically, said to me was, he goes, the big problem is basically money. He goes, there's literally not enough money out there for them to fight fires. And so he has just give me this, I mean, if he goes, and literally, so what, I actually did some research because this is what the show's about, right? Actually doing, real research. And so what I wanted to get an idea of, because he was saying it's a money thing. He goes, you don't understand how big, this problem is. And so I looked this up. Okay. Now this is on calmatters.org. This is actually the state website. Okay. So here's the deal. So there's 33 million, forested acres in California. That's a lot. I mean, I don't know how big an acre is. I mean, I'm sure I should know, but dude, that's a lot. Anytime there's a million after and 33 of them, that's a lot. Okay, so 33 million, right? 129 million number of dead trees are in California. Now get a load of this. Cal Fire. Now, Cal Fire, mind you, was the organization, the group, the firefighters that Trump tweeted about, saying that, basically insinuating that they weren't doing their job, they're misappropriating their funds. But get a load of this. They set out every year to clear 500,000 acres of brush. I think they call it chaparral. I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's like that tumbleweed stuff that grows along the hills there. It's like kindling, basically. So if you had to guess, Dom, so 500,000 is their goal. What do you think they've actually been clearing each year for the last couple of years? If you had to guess.
Let's say 10%.
40,000 acres. Their goal is 500,000. They get to 40,000.
Yeah, pretty close.
Yeah, see, they don't really, they get too much. And so it's huge. And what was this gentleman on the airplane was basically telling me, he goes, listen, there's too many trees. Like the density of the trees is ridiculous. He goes, you have any idea how long it takes to chop trees down? There's so much brush. But he goes, even if you remove all the brush, what's left over will catch on fire because it is so dry. And he goes, yeah, there could be things that could be done. I mean, yeah, there could be more funding, but he goes, even with all the funding in the world, California is so big. There's so many trees. There's so much of a problem. It's asinine to think that just by simply having a little extra funding, it would solve the problem. He goes, it's so much bigger than that. And here's what he said the irony is. He goes, PG&E is the electric company. You may know them from, Aaron Brockovich, that movie where they basically just completely were negligent and their chemicals they put in the water and killed a lot of people. So PG&E is not exactly a champion of corporate responsibility in the environment.
Sounds like they're still at it.
Yeah, and he goes, the irony is that, so PG&E, do you know they are still paying their fines from the Napa fires from last year? They still haven't even paid them back because the down power lines is one of the biggest reasons for why fires start. And so what happens when they get sued, when they cause these fires? And he goes, the irony about all this is that we know for a fact that literally, I think it was a couple hours before the fire broke out in Paradise, that customers were calling and saying they saw sparks coming from the PG&E operated power lines. And then mysteriously the fire broke out. And he goes, that's the irony, is that PG&E has been making billions of dollars. And the thing is, instead of investing in the infrastructure, instead of repairing these lines, you know what they're doing? Nothing. And he goes, how is it, CAL FIRE, guys that are out there fighting, like literally at the time when I was talking to this gentleman, he goes, 50 firefighters of the first responders have lost their homes. They were out there trying to save other people's homes because they live in those areas. 50 of those guys lost their homes fighting it. People are dying. People's livelihoods, houses destroyed. And not only are they in the middle of the fire knocking on these guys who, I think if we explore a little further here in the next few minutes, they are the ones that actually, these guys had nothing to do with it. They were doing their job. And then PG&E, the multi-billion-dollar company that literally has done nothing to invest in the infrastructure, whose line started the fire, get a pass. I mean, I don't. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe a little cranky. But is that just crazy? Is that just me that the firefighters are the ones that got yelled at, and the billion-dollar company whose power lines started it, whose power lines should have been fixed with all the profits they're making, gets a complete pass? I don't know. I mean, is it just me, Dom? I don't know.
I mean, their operating revenue back in 2017 was 17.1 mil.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And to go back to your earlier point about how many forest acres there are, 33 million acres, that's the size of North Carolina. So North Carolina is 32.3 million acres. So, just that puts it in perspective.
Yeah. So I wrote this, right? Now, what do you think the response was? Do you, if you were a betting man, would you say the conversation steered in a different direction after my very impassioned, very thoughtful, very eloquent, that's my response. I think it's eloquent. But what do you think happened after that?
I'm going to probably venture to say it veered off course once again.
Yep. There's one person, said, I did hear on PBS this morning that people were continuing to build homes in the areas that are in direct danger of fires, and that needs to stop. But with climate change, it's only getting hotter year after year. And, oh, yeah, they mentioned that California's higher elevations, where snowcaps are usually present or disappearing, added to the additional dryness. Now, remember, the person X, the original person who was making the comments, that really just steered it into the conspiracy and the budgetary thing. You know what they said? There's a lot more to the story the media isn't talking about! Exclamation point, exclamation point. I think it's much better when it's a whisper. Kind of
there we go.
It's like secret.
So maybe we need to start doing that when people use exclamation points for general sentences, right?
Well, this one I like it because it has
I don't know.
There's a lot more to the story. A lot more to the story that there isn't talking about. So you can do like a whisper with an exclamation point at the end, can't you? So once again, what does that tell you? Are they even listening to anything, or do they only want to steer it in the direction that they want to talk about?
No, they're back to their original point, and nobody's bid on it. I mean, they've been fishing that for the whole conversation, and nobody's biting on it. So,
And it shows you all they want to go to is the conspiracy theory, or all they want to go to is the liberal government kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying that the government does not have any role in this, but it's like it just shows you. And if you really, think about, go on Fox News, go on CNN, go on Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, all these. That's what they do. That's exactly what they do. You try to talk about something. You try to steer it. Well, there's a lot of different ways of looking at it. If you look at, no, I'm not talking about that. I want to talk about this, yes or no. Is it black or is it green? Well, it's not as simple as that. No, I'm not talking about any of those other things. This is what I'm talking about. All they want to do is steer you in the directions that validates that confirmation bias of what they want you to believe. And you see now people mirroring that, mimicking that same style with each other on Facebook. And screw that. We're not going to do this in the gray. This is why we take this shit to the gray. We're not going to allow that. So to me, it really comes down to like, okay, this is a great example of what happens. You saw what I was trying to do. So I think we owe it to people. Shouldn't we probably dive into this a little bit, with, the little time that we have? We should probably maybe get a little bit better understanding of maybe what is kind of going on. Don't you agree? I
say that's a great idea.
And so I'm going to start this one off, and I know you've done some really good research. So I want you to kind of tell me what you've kind of found, but I'm going to open it up with this. So a person named Pedro Nava, they're the chairman of the Little Hoover Commission. They're one of the national forestry kind of services. One of the things this person said is that if you want people to care about something, they have to understand why it matters. They need to understand the deep connection between the health of our state and the state of our forest. And he even said, some of our messages are counterintuitive. We must cut down healthy living trees to save the forest, he noted, and it is a challenge. And I want to tee that off because you even have the person who's an expert on this saying it's really tough It's so difficult to get people to understand it. And even we're not doing a good job about getting that message out, which I love that culpability from anybody, because we don't really see that a lot nowadays, do we?
Oh gosh, no.
So what did you find? Because I'm really curious, because we've both been kind of talking about this all day, and you and I are both very passionate about this topic. So what did you kind of find about our understanding of why are these fires happening? What have you kind of figured out?
Well, the interesting thing is when you look at it as a whole, I notice a lot of people take the stance that, well, it's California and wildfires are a natural thing that happens, okay? And there is some truth to that. But when you look at most of these fires and the advent of the, I guess, frequency now, especially in the last 10 years, the change that has happened that I feel could be the culprit is overpopulation, negligence, whether it be PG&E and their power lines not being fixed, whether it be personal people out in the wilderness. I mean, I'm a camper, I'm a backpacker, and I've been in many national forests where there is a strict no campfire law, and there's a reason for that. And lo and behold, I've been in those places and I've seen idiots who will light their campfire anyway, and hey, no one's there to patrol that. So when you look at this being a natural phenomenon, yes, that is part of nature, and there's a reason for that, within the ecosystem. But in the last 200 years compared to the last 20 years, I'd be really interested to do some of that research and actually see the number of fires, not only the number of fires, but the intensity and the amount of area that is lost, and see where that falls. And then also look at the population increase. I mean, I listen to Joe Rogan all the time. Love his show, Joe, if you're listening, right on. But he was just making that point about California that, it's so overpopulated and so crowded that some of these fires in the past would stay out in the wilderness. And now, as we as humans just encroach further and further out and keep taking more of this natural habitat, well, now we're populating areas that historically would not have anybody there, wouldn't have homes built there, wouldn't have communities built there. And so as we're continuing to build in areas that are prone to fires and everything that comes with it, new power lines, new infrastructure, more, there's more opportunity for a man-made human-caused fire.
And to back up that point, I was looking up another little stat here. This is interesting. So they said 19th century California, a forest would have held fewer than 50 trees an acre. Today, the state's forests have grown to an unnatural 300 to 500 trees an acre. And they said that doesn't even count the 2 million drought-stressed trees that are lost a month to bark beetles. And bark beetles, once again, one of the things I think we have to do on this show is there's evidence, but the more times that multiple people are all saying the same thing or looking at it from different areas, there's something to that. We have a good close mutual friend that actually worked for the Forestry Service, cutting trees down. And he literally said 2 years ago that they literally are working nonstop because of the bark beetle infestation, that they're just eating and annihilating and killing trees left and right. And one of the theories behind that is climate change, that because it's not getting colder, even in the mountains, that's allowing these beetles to stay alive longer. There's more of them, and they're killing even more trees. So think about it. We have a forest firefighter, and actually one of our research interns has actually let us know it's a forest firefighter. So forest firefighter, we got to remember that.
There we go.
Twister. So thank you, intern. Forest firefighter. But yeah, so we have a forest firefighter saying the same thing. We have research telling us one thing. We have a logger telling us another thing. and we have just what our plain eyes can show us. There's more people
Sure.
living out there, and of course that stuff's going to happen. So, excellent point, right? So, what else did you kind of find, Dom?
I find that a stat I found quite interesting is how the actual areas of forest land is divided up and who actually manages it. 57%. Yeah, 57% is owned by the feds. Okay. Well, so they're the majority owner, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you have our president who seems to be possibly out of touch with that. In fact, you might want to take a look on the inside first before pointing the finger to other folks. Because the state of California owns less than 10%. The remaining bit is all privately owned. So we don't even know what's going on in those privately owned forest lands.
And that's the interesting thing. Like, there's this thing called the interweb or the internet. And there's actually lots of information on there, right? And literally, so we both work, right? We have jobs and we do lots and lots of good work, don't we? And if we were able to, in a little bit of time that we have, to do some research and find some of this out, how our president does it, because I think if he would actually maybe do a little research, or dare I say it, ask somebody. I mean, shit, you have the entire federal government. You're telling me you can't contact. I mean, dude, you're the president.
Yeah.
You can call anybody. You're telling me you're going to get the head of the Forestry Service on the line? Go, hey, dude. I mean, hell, the EP. I mean, you're telling me you couldn't get one person going, hey, help me understand what's going on out there. Instead, what does he just spout? He spouts what he read on a conspiracy news website.
Well, and the sad part is CAL FIRE, they own 3%. 3%.
Yep.
3%. That's all they really can account for themselves. And yet, the blame's been pointed towards them in some circles. It's just asinine, man. It's just asinine. It really is.
Well, and the thing is, like, I think one of the last parts we have to kind of look at here is, so if we're looking at so far, if we're building a case here, it's very multifaceted, right?
Mm-hmm.
The sheer size of the problem is probably one of the biggest issues. So many forests, and regardless of who neglected it, it's just the numbers are staggering. You need so many people, so many resources, and it'd still take a lot of time, and these things are still going to happen. It's just such a huge problem. We do know climate change does play some role in it, especially the whole bark beetle thing and how dry things are.
Oh, I can attest for the dryness when my family was living in Sacramento, taking a trip to Folsom Lake. And I felt like I was in a Mad Max movie. I'm literally standing on what should be a boat dock. And instead of being right on the water, I'm looking all the way down in the distance of the basin of the lake and realize, wait a minute, there's the lake. And oh my gosh, those are people in SUVs and Jeeps that are pulled all the way down there, 200 or 300 yards away from the dock. It was insane to see that and witness that with my own eyes.
Well, heck, we tried going skiing, and we had to wait till the end of the spring to figure out where we wanted to go because there's no snow anywhere.
Yep.
And so, I mean, but the thing is, so that's very big. And you would think that if somebody had an understanding, there's no way in hell you could blame CAL FIRE, right? But that's what happened. And so why are they blaming CAL FIRE? Well, let's go into the conspiracy theory, basically. So once again, they looked at it that it was all due to Governor Jerry Brown. And Governor Jerry Brown basically signed this bill in 2016. Now, the thing that they really dive into, okay, the thing that they're really attacking was there was an addendum to it. So it passed in 2016, and then there was an addendum to it that he actually went against. And so it was a veto. I'm actually going to give the bill so people can look it up. It was called SB 1463. Look it up. It's a bill in California legislature that would have required California Public Utility Commission to prioritize areas of increased risk from overhead wires in their management of wildfires. And he denied it. He struck it down. Now, mind you, everybody supported it. That bill passed unanimously. So it's funny how, now I know there's a lot of Democrats out there, but even all the Republicans voted along with it. Everybody went along with it. If anything, isn't that what a lot of conservatives really want? To let the government, like, don't mess with our public utilities. Don't do any of these things. Let them do their thing. Just like Trump wanted to relax coal restrictions. It's going to bring prices down. So basically, you had a Democrat governor doing what Republicans want you to do. What Trump has done with the EPA. He did it. That's what you want them to do. Like, it's going to bring prices down. Don't let these guys regulate. And so, ironically, of course, the Napa fires, and when that Camp Fire broke out, PG&E, the sparking power lines, everybody started attacking that. It was the reason why was because of this. But now, here's the reality, though. They actually went through and really reality tested this, okay? And now the thing is, it wasn't that it was, oh, we're not going to prioritize it. All they did was take the onus of those plans away from the California public utility companies. But that being said, though, what they did strengthen up is that these companies have to have a mitigation plan, an approved mitigation plan of what they are going to do to solve these problems and to take care of it and then be held accountable to it. Now, doesn't that sound awful familiar, like deregulation? Am I wrong? I mean, isn't that let the companies do, like, let the government get out of their business and let the companies do their own thing? Am I wrong? Am I off base there, Don? I mean,
not at all. Not at all.
Accountable guy.
Not
and
at
so
all.
That's what they did. Let them come up with a plan. You know, they earmarked over $1 billion over a time period to fight these fires. Now, that money, as you said, was evenly distributed to all the various entities, CAL FIRE being one of them, to basically manage the fire suppression plans and everything. And then basically, now here's the thing that's really messed up. Now, this is the thing that nobody is really kind of talking about. And this is the thing that I wanted to kind of end on, because everyone's talking, once again, about CAL FIRE. But here's the interesting thing. So one of the things that was in this little thing was they basically had, so right now, as I said earlier, PG&E and a couple of the utility companies have to pay billions in fines for causing these fires, and that they still haven't paid back the fires from 2016, not even the fires from 2017, not even the early ones, from 2017. And you know what this bill did do? It capped the amount of dollars that a company can be charged for screwing everything up. Literally. We don't want you guys, and what Governor Brown said was, well, if we sue them so bad they go out of business, all of our prices are going to go up. Now, once again, does that sound like a Democrat, or does that kind of sound like a Republican? If I didn't even tell you he was Democrat or Republican, what would that sound like? Just saying. Just,
there's a small correlation there.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, so what did they capped it off, right? This is the beautiful part about it, right? Not only did they cap how much they could charge, what they also did was go, okay, not only can they cap how much you get sued, we're going to allow you to charge your customers for your own screw ups. They can charge through fees up to $1 billion every single year.
Ugh.
An annual bar. They can charge that to their people.
And I'm sure it's hidden in a nice fancy little line item somewhere obscurely in the bill that is just slightly under the radar in the fine print, I would be willing to bet.
Yeah.
If anybody's listening in California and you have a copy of your bill, take a look at us. Reach out to us.
Take a picture of it. Yes.
Let us know if you can see that in there. Let us see.
What do they call it? They actually have a name for it, so you know what to look for. It is called. Let's see here. They said it. Yeah, it's a result. It's a general thumb. I guess they call it an annual surcharge for customers assessed every year until the loan is paid off. So they're allowed taking a loan against it, but charging their people for it. So it's not even a loan. Because how do you call it a loan if you're charging your customers for it? and then you're using that. It's not a loan. You're just charging them basically for it.
You're essentially stealing from your customers. I mean, that's the way I see it. But
yeah, and so it's like a bailout. And so one of the state senators said, shouldn't we focus on requiring PG&E to improve the safety of their electric system that they've been neglecting all these years? That's what State Senator Jerry Hill said during last month's floor debate. And he goes, instead, this bill rewards their bad behavior. He goes, but Governor Brown goes, well, the utilities have to stay in business. They have to make enough return to be a viable corporation. So here's the irony about all this. Everything is partisan. And so we have multiple people all saying the same damn thing, all reinforcing it. And because we have a media, we have politicians that don't know anything about this problem, reading random crap that they get from either a lobbyist or really now the media. I mean, like Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Don Lemon. I mean, it goes on both sides. They really just take, that's like their information. It's like their intelligence. It's like their new Joint Chiefs. And they make an argument and scapegoat people that are ones actually helping, and it has nothing to do with the problem. And then no one's having a discussion what the real problem is. And the irony is that, a person who was on that Facebook post obviously had a slant towards Republicans. He was making an argument and scapegoating firefighters, not even understanding the empathy of the issue. And then, technically speaking, he had a perfect ammo to really go and point at Democrats. The governor, Jerry Brown, he could have used that. That was fact. That was a great way of going. This is really what's to blame. So you have technically the governor who got off scot-free. You have PG&E who's really kind of to blame for their greed. And yet, what are we talking about? The firefighters aren't doing enough? There's some secret stash of money that's going towards sanctuary cities? Fuck, come on.
And
really? That's all you got?
And
you
the
have a perfectly good
is,
argument to make. Just read and understand the problem. And so imagine if, like, the people in that Facebook post and President Trump were in charge. Oh, shit, they'd throw out CAL FIRE and they would find the secret money. It's like trying to find where Jimmy Hoffa was buried. Meanwhile, it's like, oh, okay, no, the problem is very multifaceted. Yeah, there's a small climate change component, but all right, that one's tough to fix, but we have a lot of dead trees, a lot of tree density, way too much acreage to cover. We have a utility companies that are neglecting the whole infrastructure off of profiteering, that are getting off scot-free and allowed to do it, get bailouts now, that literally less consequences for it. And that's the confluence of what's happening. That's where our solutions need to be. But the BS that we got going on in this country right now, the media, the people, they're not even looking at the right damn things. They had to steer it back to whatever's a good argument. And apparently it all traced back to immigration, sanctuary cities. All that money is going to there. And it's like, come on. So that's what we're dealing with. But I think we did a good job today. What do you think, Tom? Do you think we did a good job of being respectful, looking at it from all the sides, and really kind of explain to people what's going on?
I would think so. But I do have one question, though.
Yeah.
How the hell do we get a hold of Aaron Brockovich to come back on the scene and take care of this?
You know what? I would love to see, because the second you see PG&E, like, I remember my wife was like, Aaron Brockovich, they are always screwing up. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Maybe if, like, we whispered, like,
exclamation point.
Story. There's a company called PG&E. I don't even know what it stands for. But they're bad. Exclamation point. Exclamation point.
And then you got to think about, you watch all this media coverage. When is someone in the media gonna potentially challenge the status quo and call these guys out? I mean,
you got to look at, though. I mean, just like,
who's going to have the balls to do it? Is anybody?
Well, think about it. I mean, and once again, each side's doing it. You have, I think, more the conservative media is going after, like, somehow it's money being misappropriated and funneled to sanctuary cities and immigrants and God knows where the hell else. But then But then the liberal media, they're just making it, going back and look, Trump's a narcissist. He doesn't give a shit about people. And it's like, fuck. Like, are we the only one? I mean, are we the last bad? Are we like the stopgap here, Dom? Is it up to us? I mean, that's kind of why we're doing this, right?
Well, again, I'm calling out to Aaron Brockovich, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, call our show.
I think we got to get the intern on that. The intern did a really good job of finding out it was a forest firefighter. So maybe our intern can somehow figure out Aaron Brockovich. Hey, listen, we're this small growing show. We might be a big deal. How about come on our show?
And they sent a link to our intern, sent another article link about all the conspiracy theories with these California wildfires. I'll have to post this link on our site because it's quite interesting to see some of these crazy hypotheses on what the problem may be. It's interesting. We'll just say that. I don't want to say it's ludicrous, but
we'll post it on there. I mean, it's an open free. So all the articles that we are referencing, we're going to put on the website for you guys to look at. We'll obviously going to post a show, write a little blog kind of on it, get everyone involved in the discussion. And I think what we should do with the intern, because we're not paying him right now. I mean, it's kind of like, dude, I mean, you got to earn your medal. I would say I will put money in. I'll invest in it. If our intern can get Aaron Brockovich on the show. I say we turn it into a salary. I will throw that out there. We might be breaking an employment law by saying it's contingent, but I will pay him. I will pay the intern if they get Aaron Brockovich. That is worth their medal. I think we should do it. So, but I think we did a good job. I think we did it. I think we explored it. I think now we leave it to the people. We did a good job of presenting the facts. Now let's throw it out there and see if we can have a different discussion. So let's throw that
challenge out there. Anyone who does jump on our page and follows this podcast, let's see if we can stay on topic. Let's see if everybody who comments, let's challenge them to take the time to listen to our show in its entirety and see if that helps everybody stay on topic.
I agree. It sounds good to me. So I think on that note, I think we let people think and let them kind of have at it. So that concludes another thrilling, riveting installment of The Gray. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Everyman Don Basillo, try not to blow yourself in between this episode and the next episode, because I know you love it, man. I'm telling you, you don't have to do that to get to The Gray. But I promise you, we'll get there, all right? So everybody, thank you so much. Enjoy the time and keep it in the gray.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gray Matters Radio with Michael Devine. For more episodes and information, visit us online at graymattersradio.com. Join the conversation by following Gray Matters Radio on Facebook and Twitter. Gray Matters Radio is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more live episodes of this and other great shows, download the free HC Universal Network app at hcuniversalnetwork.com. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, remember, think about the gray.